Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider, a priest of the Legionaries of Christ and a theology professor. This is a podcast on the Star Quest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 250, recovering Ad Gentes 12 on missions in natural human groups. So, don't know how I got that. I wrote those a while back when I scanned it, and that one does not quite match what we have. We have really more of charity, Christian charity as a form of mission. Anyways, if you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican or frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday we spoke about how the church revealed itself to all peoples, and this starts with Christians living among them as witnesses. Today, we're continuing Chapter 2, Mission Work Itself, and concluding Article 1, Christian Witness. And the summary is Christian charity is often a key part of witness and should be deeper than mere material help. That is a much better summary than among natural human groups. I don't know where I got that. But I got mixed up. That might actually be tomorrow. So our summary, paragraph 12, the summary has 4 subparagraphs. We'll read them in 3 parts. A, Christian charity should be a force of mission. B and C, the church should set things to help those who are less fortunate, but should not take over politics. And D, Christian charity goes beyond mere material help. So this, you can see this kind of overarching theme of Christian charity and how it's not just providing the person with a meal, but providing with a meal that gives them human dignity and helps them see the love of God. So let's read 12a. The presence of the Christian faithful in these human groups should be inspired by that charity with which God has loved us, and with which he wills that we should love one another. Confer 1 John 4. Christian charity truly extends to all without distinction of race, creed, or social condition. It looks for neither gain nor gratitude. For as God loved us with an unselfish love, so also the faithful should in their charity care for the human person himself, loving him with the same affection with which God set out man. Just as Christ then went about all the towns and villages, curing every kind of disease and infirmity as a sign of the kingdom of God had come, confer Matthew 9 and Acts 10, so also the church, through her children, is one with men of every condition, but especially with the poor and the afflicted. For them she gladly spends and is spent, confer 2 Corinthians 12, sharing these joys and sorrows, knowing their longings and problems, suffering with them in death's anxieties. To these in quest of peace she wishes to answer in fraternal dialogue, bearing them the peace and light of the gospel. This subparagraph and this whole paragraph is a very beautiful exploration of Christian charity in this sense, and we need to be Christians who are inspired by Jesus' love. God wills love for all of us, and that we love each other, so that's charity to all, and independent of any factors. They note even here religion. We as Christians are charitable to all, even if they're not religious. Even if they're not religious, or there's some other religion like a Hindu or a Muslim. We see, for example, Mother Teresa in our time, at least for those of us who are a little older. The younger ones might not be your time quite, but a little before your time, an example of living this Christian charity, of a witness that actually evangelized and brought a lot of people to know, love, and serve Jesus. And so we care for the person before us in charity. We care for that person. We look at them with the love with which God looks at them and hopes that they can help and move forward. And we, like Christ, we can go around curing people. We see Christian hospitals, Christian doctors, Christian ministries will often do a lot of things like Christ. Now, obviously, we're not doing it with miracles as much as Jesus did, at least not miracles that, are supernatural. Often we're using more natural means, and it might be like a miracle, because I know, for example, there's Christians who go and they do these surgeries like laser eye surgeries, and as far as the people in this part of the world are concerned, in these poor villages, that might as well be a miracle because they don't understand it all. It seems like a miracle. And that's important. And finally, we share the joys and sorrows of those who minister to. We seek peace and charity. We help them in their times of struggle, in their sufferings and anxiety and things like that. So that concludes A. Moving on to 12b and c. The church should set things to help those less fortunate, but should not take over politics. Pretty straightforward. B is about helping others. C is about not taking over nations or politics. B. Let Christians labor and collaborate with others in rightly regulating the affairs of social and economic life. With special care, let them devote themselves to the education of children and young people by means of different kinds of schools, which should be considered not only as the most excellent means of forming and developing Christian youth, but also as a valuable public service, especially in the developing nations, working toward the uplifting of human dignity and toward better living conditions. Furthermore, let them take part in the strivings of these peoples who, waging war on famine, ignorance, and disease, are struggling to better their way of life and to secure peace in the world. In this activity, the faithful should be eager to offer prudent aid to projects sponsored by public and private organizations, by governments, or by various Christian communities, and even non-Christian religions. However, the church has no desire at all to intrude itself into the government of the earthly city. Oh, this is C, that intrude itself into the earthly city. It claims no other activity than that of ministering to men with the help of God in the spirit of charity and faithful service. Confer Matthew 20 and 23. So we see in these two subparagraphs this idea of these great things we do to fix the social order. We provide schools, educate people, learn about the sciences, learn about the faith, learn all those things. And a lot of times these schools, especially schools in places of developing nations, schools in poor areas of the city, are a great way to help lift people out of poverty. Because there's that old saying, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. That's true, but in our modern world, we don't need too many more people who know how to fish. We need people who know how to be engineers or doctors or things like that. And a lot of times, unfortunately, the schools in the poor areas of our nation or the poor areas of the world are insufficient for that without help. And a lot of times, that is what can help break this generational poverty. To have one person who's able to finish their high school, get into a decent college, even if they don't get the most tremendous job like that, even getting a job such as, say, a professional welder who's certified to weld big things, that can get you a decent amount of money and bring you, and you can then bring your parents out of this cycle of poverty. That's the kind of thing that schools can do. They can really transform these kind of neighborhoods where everyone is poor and needy. And it notes here also that the church also does things like medical work, anti-poverty work, because we want to help those who are less fortunate. We have that duty as Christians, and we have that duty as a church. It's not just, hey, nice, each individually, but it's also collectively as a church. So both of them, and this is a way of being missionaries, a way of evangelizing. And we can do that even at times when we collaborate with those outside the church, whether other Christians or even non-Christian religions. We've mentioned before, I think somewhere else, about the idea how a lot of times a number of very Catholic countries, the Vatican, and a number of very Muslim countries are the ones fighting against certain kinds of abuses against the family that the UN is trying to push forward by some of the more progressive Western nations. And that is something where the church is collaborating with these non-Christians, with these Muslims, because as far as thinking, should we promote certain values, they agree with us. And that's important. So it's important to collaborate in those things, important to work together. Now, moving on to our last one, 12D, Christian charity goes beyond mere material help. And the idea of this subparagraph is to point out that it isn't just, I gave the person a meal, but I gave them their dignity. I showed them the love of God by what I didn't. And I think we can see, hopefully, the difference between going to a Christian charity one where everyone's joyful and showing the love of God, showing the dignity of the people, and going to one where it's just government and it's just kind of like getting them out to get it done, right? Just, here's a slop to eat, right? One of the things I often say is that we have a duty to make sure that nobody is starving. And we can have charity to make them a nice meal, not just make them the cheapest, most, barely edible, but survivable gunk to eat. So let's read paragraph 12D. Close united with men in their life and work, Christ's disciples hope to render to others true witness of Christ and to work for their salvation, even where they are not able to announce Christ fully. For they are not seeking mere maternal progress and prosperity for men, but are promoting their dignity and brotherly union, teaching those religious and moral truths with Christ illuminated with his light. And in this way, they are gradually opening up a fuller approach to God. Thus, they can help men attain to salvation by love for God and neighbor, and the mystery of Christ begins to shine forth, in which there appears the new man created according to God, confer Ephesians 4, and in which the charity of God is revealed. pretty straightforward, I think. This points out that Catholic Charities are a true witness of the Christian spirit, are different charities. Not necessarily just Catholic Charities as the brand name in the U.S., but all the different charities run by the Catholic Church or by Catholics and things like that. And we seek not just a material prosperity. We don't just want them to have food. We want them to have human dignity. We want them ultimately to have salvation. Now, obviously, we can't force salvation, as we've talked about elsewhere, but people who are provided these things and provided them freely are often moved in that direction. And it's very important not to make it as kind of a conditional thing where, hey, if you come and, join our church, we'll give you free food. That's not a way to evangelize. That's actually kind of problematic because it means they aren't really believe. It often makes them so they aren't believing and they're not authentic in their belief. They're just doing it for the food. That's not good. And our charity here shows the new man, shows love for God, love for men. And ultimately, this kind of charity can be a revelation of God to these people. It's a wonderful revelation and a wonderful thing to consider. So, thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast, and you can donate to help StarQuest produce it, another great podcast at sqpn.com/give. You can give one-time monthly or join the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow, we will continue with the next paragraph of Ad Gentes, which is paragraph 13 on converting people, not forcing them. Kind of what I was implying just a minute ago. Anyway, so please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which will provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. If you want more information on this podcast, like playlists and a reading plan, go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, and Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X. There's also an SQPN Discord server with a channel for Vatican II in a Year at sqpn.com/Discord.
Amen.